The night stretched wide and dark across the Blackwater Bridge, its rusted railings glinting beneath a cold, pale moon. 5 girls gathered there, laughing too loud, drinking too much, and pretending the darkness wasn't pressing in on them. Victoria was the center of it all, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. Around her stood Lana, trying to match her confidence. May, whose quiet eyes missed nothing, Jada, restless and wild, and Erin, the youngest, unsure why her stomach twisted every time Victoria laughed. And then there was Sarah. Sarah stood apart from them, arms folded tightly over her chest. Her hair shifted gently in the wind, her presence so still it made the others look like shadows flickering around a flame. Victoria turned toward her, a half-empty bottle in hand. "Come on, Sarah," she said with a teasing edge. "It's just a drink. Don't be so uptight." Sarah shook her head. "You know I don't drink, Vic. I just don't want to." Lana giggled nervously. "It's one sip. You always act like we're trying to poison you." "Maybe that's what it feels like," Sarah said quietly. The laughter stopped. Even the river below seemed to hush. Victoria's smile wavered, replaced by something meaner. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" "What? No, I never." "My boyfriend talks about you," Victoria interrupted, her words dripping with bitterness. "He says you're kind, says you understand him. That's funny, isn't it?" None of the other girls laughed. May looked away, pretending to adjust her jacket. Erin's hands twisted around each other. "Victoria," Sarah said softly, "you're drunk. Let's go home." Victoria's voice hardened. "Maybe, but I'm not wrong." She stepped closer. Her eyes were wild and wet. The bottle in her hand caught the moonlight like a blade. Erin whispered, "Vic, stop. You're scaring her." "Oh, don't be dramatic," Victoria snapped. "We're just playing, aren't we, Sarah?" "I want to go home," Sarah repeated, her voice trembling. Victoria took another step forward, forcing Sarah against the railing. The cold metal pressed into her back. Beneath them, the river moved like something alive, whispering against the rocks. "Say it," Victoria demanded. "Say you wanted him." "I didn't. I never—" The argument broke apart into chaos. A push, a scream. Sarah stumbled, catching the rail for balance. Victoria reached for her, maybe to stop her, maybe not. The bottle slipped from her hand. There was a hollow crack, a gasp, then the sound of something heavy hitting the water below. For a moment, no one moved. The world held its breath. Erin's voice cracked first. "She can't swim! Victoria, she can't swim!" Victoria's face went pale. "Shut up," she hissed. "Don't say anything. No one saw. We just leave. We leave now." The girls ran, their footsteps echoing down the road until the night swallowed them. Behind them, the bridge stood silent. The river flowed on, its surface black and rippling as if hiding a secret. Beneath it, the last bubbles rose and broke, and the bridge remembered. Years passed. Seasons came and went, and the bridge stood the same, bent and rusted, its once bright paint now flaking away like forgotten skin. The town around it learned to live with the story. It whispered it like a bedtime warning, a ghost tale traded in hushed voices over candlelight and campfires. They called it Drowning Girl Bridge. Every child in Blackwater grew up knowing its name. They said if you stood there at midnight, you could hear someone crying under the planks, her voice soft and far away like a memory that refused to rest. No one mentioned Sarah anymore, not out loud. The newspapers had called it a tragic accident, a slip on a wet rail. The police closed the case. The girls graduated, moved on, built lives that looked normal on the outside. But people talk, they always do. Some said a fisherman saw a girl standing at the edge of the bridge one foggy morning. Her hair hung in dripping strands. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared into the water below. When he called out to her, she turned her head slowly, and he saw her eyes, clouded white, like river stones. He never went back there again. Others swore that if you drove across the bridge after dark, your headlights would flicker and your radio would turn to static. A faint voice would whisper through the noise, "Why did you leave me?" One boy, drunk and daring, threw a bottle over the railing to impress his friends. They laughed until they heard the sound of a second splash, heavier than the bottle, as though something unseen had jumped in after it. And then, silence. For years, the bridge gathered stories like dust. It waited. And somewhere, deep in the water beneath it, the river kept what it was given. The air above it carried a faint chill. Even in the height of summer, birds never perched on its railings. Sometimes, if you looked long enough into the current, you could swear you saw a pale face moving beneath the surface, eyes open, mouth slightly parted, as if still trying to speak. The townsfolk learned to take the long way around. Truckers refused to cross it after dusk. Teenagers dared each other to walk it, but most never made it halfway before turning back. Still, every so often, flowers would appear on the bridge, wilted, tied with faded ribbon. No one ever saw who left them. And in a small house on the other side of town, Victoria would wake from restless dreams, her throat raw from screaming a name she'd tried to forget: Sarah. Time had moved on, but the bridge had not. It remembered everything: the shoves, the laughter, the river that had claimed Sarah. It waited patiently, quietly, for the moment when the guilty would return and the echo of old sins could find new ears. It was a warm summer night when the children of those 5 girls, now grown, came together. They did not know the full story of the bridge, only that it was a place to dare, to laugh, to test courage. They arrived in the glow of headlights and the hum of music, their voices carrying into the night as if daring the river to respond. Among them were the daughters of Victoria, May, Jada, and Lana, along with a few others who had heard the legend and wanted to feel the thrill. They joked, drank, and snapped photos. The bridge seemed silent, obedient, almost casual in its watchfulness. And then, slowly, the night began to change. It started with small things, footsteps in places where no one was, whispers curling around the girls' ears, impossible to place, like the wind speaking words too soft to understand, a hairbrush falling from a bag, a laugh that wasn't theirs. One girl, laughing too loudly, felt a hand brush her shoulder. She spun around, but no one was there. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. Her friends shrugged, teasing her, but she could not shake the feeling that something cold was pressing close, watching. Another tried to cross the bridge alone, daring herself. She paused halfway when she noticed the water below moving against the current, not just flowing, moving, twisting, curling upward like it had life. And then a pale hand emerged briefly, grasping at the air, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. They began to argue, nerves fraying. The bravest of them, a boy named Lucas, tried to make light of it. "It's just stories, right? Ghosts aren't real." But even he could not ignore the reflection in the water. It was Sarah's face, pale, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes wide with a sorrow that was now sharpened into rage. She smiled at him, then disappeared, and one by one, the children began to vanish. First, a daughter of May pulled backward by an unseen force, her screams swallowed by the mist. Then, Lana's child, who had been running ahead, turned suddenly to see a figure standing at the edge of the bridge. Sarah, drenched and pale, eyes burning with unrelenting fury. When the child screamed, she was gone. Jada's son and a few others tried to flee, but the bridge itself seemed to trap them. Planks shifted, shadows moved. They ran in circles only to return to the same spot, faces etched with growing terror. By the time dawn approached, the party was over. No one remained on the bridge. The town would later find their abandoned belongings, phones, bags, shoes, scattered as though a violent wind had passed through. The bridge was quiet again, but only for now. Beneath its rotting boards, the river murmured. The ghost waited. It was no longer just Sarah's story. It had become a story of vengeance, and it would not end until the guilty, her murderers, faced her wrath once more. The lives of those girls had begun to crumble under the weight of their secret. The adults, Victoria, Lana, May, Jada, and Erin, had tried to bury the past, to convince themselves that the river had swallowed their sins and nothing else mattered. They had moved on, built homes, careers, and families, but some things refused to be buried. It began with a phone call. Victoria's hands trembled when the sheriff's voice came through the line, calm yet firm. "We found something," he said. "A personal item, a necklace, engraved with the name Sarah. We need you to come down to the station." Victoria's stomach dropped. She gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, knuckles white, and whispered her own name aloud as if speaking it would steel her nerves. "It can't be. It's been years." Her phone vibrated again. Lana had called, panic lacing her voice. "Victoria, the sheriff found something. Something from the bridge. He wants us all to meet." May's hands shook as she read the texts, each word a nail in the coffin of the denial she had clung to for so long. Jada tried to laugh, forcing light into a voice that quivered. "It's just some old jewelry. We don't have to go back there." But even she couldn't hide the tremor in her jaw, the way her eyes darted nervously toward every shadow. Erin, the youngest, who had once been hesitant to stand up to Victoria, now found herself shaking with dread. Her own children were at home, unaware of the gathering storm about to return to their families. The four women, survivors of the original night, though haunted by it for decades, gathered in Victoria's living room. Each face bore the same mixture of panic and disbelief. Their laughter, nervous and brittle, could not mask the guilt that had never faded, the shared memory of what they had done. Victoria spoke first, voice low, steady but laced with fear. "We can't ignore this. If the sheriff has something, we need to face it. It's time." Lana's face drained of color. "Face it? Vic, the bridge, Sarah, I can't go back there." "You don't have a choice," May said, trying to sound rational, though her own voice quivered. "He found her. The bridge. Something's coming." Jada's hands clenched the edges of her seat. "Something's always coming," she muttered, "and it's not going to wait for us to feel ready." The air grew thick as the women prepared, each of them moving with a nervous precision. They packed bags of essentials, checked their children, and drove to the town sheriff's station, the streets growing narrower and darker as they approached the place where past and present would collide. The sheriff's office smelled of old wood and ink, a faint metallic tang lingering in the air. The desk clerk handed them a small, water-stained velvet bag. Inside lay a delicate necklace, a charm engraved with Sarah's name, worn smooth as though it had been held under water for years. Victoria's breath caught. Her hand shook violently as she lifted the necklace. I thought it was gone," she whispered. The sheriff, a man hardened by years of small-town mysteries, looked at each of them gravely. "It's not just the necklace. There have been disappearances, kids, people connected to the bridge, and this was Sarah's. We think the past is coming back." Panic gripped them like ice. They looked at each other, each face a mirror of terror. Years of repression, the laughter, the teasing, the shove that ended Sarah's life, had left invisible scars. But this was something alive, something demanding retribution. Victoria spoke again, her voice cracking. We have to go back." "No," Lana shrieked. "We can't. We'll die there. I can feel it. I feel her." May began to cry openly, words stumbling over one another. "We thought we could live with it. We thought hiding, moving on. But she's still here." Jada's eyes darted to the window, where the moon hung pale in the sky. "I can see her. I can feel her," she whispered. Her voice grew louder, more hysterical. "She's waiting, watching us, and she'll take everyone we love." Erin's children slept in the next room, unaware. She clutched her chest, feeling their vulnerability, as though Sarah's ghost could sense it, could reach through the walls. "We have to go," she said finally, voice trembling, "before it's too late." The women left the sheriff's office, their hands clutching the necklace as though it were both a warning and a curse. The drive to the bridge was silent. the road stretching endlessly before them. Every shadow on the roadside, every swaying tree branch became a specter in their panicked minds. When the bridge finally appeared through the mist, it was more imposing than memory had allowed. Rusted metal towers loomed like skeletal arms. The river beneath churned with a darkness that seemed to breathe. Victoria stopped the car at the edge of the asphalt, heart pounding. Her friends stared at the bridge, frozen, the years of guilt and denial crashing down on them. "This is it," Victoria whispered, voice barely audible. "We have to face her, or she'll take everything." For a long moment, the four women stood there staring into the black water, each knowing that the bridge remembered them, remembered the night Sarah had died, and that something had been waiting all these years, patient, angry, and hungry. As they stepped toward the railing, the hairs on the backs of their necks rose. Something shifted in the corner of their vision. A pale figure, thin, wet, eyes glowing faintly like candlelight beneath the mist, watching, waiting. The moment stretched. Their breaths came in ragged gasps. Their hands shook, clutching one another, and the necklace as if it were a lifeline. It was only the beginning. The bridge loomed above the river, dark and unyielding, as if it had grown taller since their last encounter. Rusted railings twisted in the moonlight, each shadow a jagged promise of what awaited. The women's breaths came fast, shallow, as though the night itself constricted around them. Victoria led the way, clutching the water-stained necklace like a talisman. Behind her, Lana, May, and Jada followed, their faces pale, eyes darting to every creaking plank and every whispering wind. Erin had refused to leave her children and had stayed behind, tears staining her cheeks as she begged the others to turn back. But it was too late. Sarah had already sensed them. The moment they stepped onto the bridge, the air thickened. It smelled of wet earth and something metallic, a faint tang that made their stomachs churn. The river below moved unnaturally, rippling against itself as though something just beneath the surface stirred, aware of their presence. Victoria's legs shook, but she forced herself forward. We have to do this," she whispered, more to herself than to the others. "We have to face her." A sudden chill passed over them. Lana shivered violently. I think I see her," she said. Her voice quivered. "By the railing, that figure, she's wet." They all turned toward it. Sarah's ghost emerged from the shadows, pale and dripping, hair plastered to her face. Her eyes burned not with warmth but with fury. She did not move like a living girl. She hovered, twisting in the air as if the river itself held her up. Victoria screamed, the sound tearing from her throat. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" The ghost did not respond. She raised a hand pointing toward Victoria, and in that instant the bridge seemed to shift. The planks beneath them buckled, shadows coiling at their feet, forming shapes of hands and faces, all whispering, all accusing. Lana was the first to fall victim. She screamed as the railing behind her seemed to reach out like a skeletal arm. She tried to step back, but her foot caught on a plank. The figure of Sarah glided closer, water dripping from every inch of her, eyes fixed on Lana's terrified face. In a blink, Lana vanished, pulled into the darkness, leaving nothing but her empty shoes on the bridge. May, paralyzed with fear, felt a cold hand brush against her arm. She spun around, heart hammering, only to see Sarah's face reflected in the water below, staring up at her from beneath the surface. May's reflection began to twist, mocking her, screaming silently, and in that moment she knew there was no escape. She stumbled backward, screaming as invisible hands clawed at her, dragging her toward the edge. Jada's encounter was no less horrifying. She saw her own daughter standing at the far end of the bridge, smiling, beckoning her closer. Desperation clawed at her chest. "No, no!" she screamed, but the child's eyes suddenly shifted, turning hollow and black. The child's voice became Sarah's. "Why did you leave me?" Jada lunged forward to grab her daughter, but there was nothing there. Only the river beneath, rising as if it had learned to breathe, reached up and claimed her. Victoria alone remained, trembling, her knees weak. She clutched the necklace, her fingers slick with sweat. She could hear the whispered accusations rising in a chorus, drowning out her rational thoughts. "You left me! You left me! You left me! Please!" Victoria cried. "I didn't mean—" Sarah's ghost glided toward her, eyes blazing, and a cold, silent force pressed against Victoria's chest. Memories of that night, the shoves, the laughter, the panic, the betrayal, assaulted her. Every lie she had told herself, every excuse was torn away. She fell to her knees, gasping, the necklace slipping from her hands into the river. The water rippled unnaturally, curling upward like tendrils, reaching for her. And then the ghost spoke, her voice cold and unwavering. "You took everything from me. Now I take what is mine." Victoria screamed as the darkness seemed to fold around her. The bridge groaned, twisting, bending, the river below churning violently. She tried to run, but every plank became a trap, every shadow a snare. The hands of the water reached for her as Sarah hovered above, eyes locked on Victoria's. For a moment it was as if the bridge itself had come alive, an extension of Sarah's fury. The wind twisted, carrying whispers of their guilt. The bridge had remembered, it had waited, and now it was claiming its due. By the time dawn approached, the bridge was empty. No trace of Victoria, Lana, May, or Jada remained. Their children, who had been caught in the original cycle of sin, were gone as well. Only the water shimmered under the morning light, calm as ever, hiding the horrors beneath. The necklace floated near the railing, glinting faintly in the sunlight, a silent reminder. The bridge had been patient. It had been waiting decades to correct the injustice. And it would continue to wait silently for the next trespassers, the next guilty hearts. The river moved gently, almost lazily, but beneath the surface the eyes of Sarah burned on. Her vengeance was complete yet eternal, for the bridge remembered every secret, every betrayal, every sin. And the memory of that night, of those girls, of the bridge that had claimed them, would never be forgotten. The bridge stood silent in the early morning light, as if nothing had happened. Rusted iron rails glimmered faintly, and the river below whispered, hiding the horrors beneath its surface. But for those who remembered, the silence was the loudest sound of all. Victoria, Lana, May, and Jada had vanished. Their children, caught in the same web of fate, had disappeared as well. Only the necklace lay on the railing, a quiet testament to the justice that had finally been served. The water shimmered softly, reflecting the rising sun, as though nothing had ever lived or died there. Yet for Sarah, the bridge had only just begun. Her form, pale and dripping, watched from the shadows, always waiting. For the bridge remembered every secret, every betrayal, every scream that had ever echoed along its metal bones. The town would whisper of strange disappearances, of empty houses and broken doors, of laughter that wasn't laughter and cries that weren't human. But they would never know the full story. They would never know the ghost of a girl who had been robbed of life and had returned to claim hers in full. And somewhere, in the distance, a mother would glance at her child playing near the edge of the river and shiver, sensing a presence, a warning that could not be ignored. For the bridge and Sarah waited. If you listen closely, late at night you might hear her soft, echoing voice, "Return what is mine, or be taken with me." The story ends here, but the bridge does not. Its memory lives, its revenge eternal. And as the shadows of night return, remember this: wherever fear sleeps, the past awakens. If you felt the chill of this tale, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories waiting to haunt you. And don't forget to return for our 2-week Halloween marathon, where the darkest tales come alive. Until then, keep your lanterns close and your courage closer. The night is always listening.